every day, this too shall pass. Doesn't matter if you're at your highs or your lows. It reminds you of when you're at your highs, this won't be and if you're at your lows, it will come to pass at some point. That's like next on the list. I don't have many tattoos, but if it's got to be tattooed, right? At some point, your speaking career will take off as long as you just stick with it, right?
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am super thrilled to have Cam Beaudoin on the show. It's been a long time coming. And we are going to get into a topic that I love, which is speaking. But before we do that, Cam, thank you for being on the show.
Hey, Annika, thanks for having me.
Of course. And I want to get into your background because I think it's really interesting and unique when you think about being a computer networking and technical support person and having an electromechanical engineering degree. It doesn't necessarily play into now you have a speaking agency.
Right. Yeah. I guess where do I start? Yeah. I mean, I was always a super nerd, loved storytelling, big into video games and stuff like that. So, and I think that if I look back, all the video games I ever played was like the big story-based one. So that was always something that I loved. But I never pursued any of the engineering part, like the building of computers. I wasn't, but there was one course in there, which was software development. And I fell into a job at IBM. And in there, they're like, well, where are we going to put you? We like your skills. We don't know where to put you. So they put me on digital accessibility. And so helping a big project build websites and technology for people with disabilities. And that's where kind of all the speaking took off. I have a friend who's blind. And when he came to our office for the first time, I just saw how challenging it was for him to interact with not just technology, but the world itself, but also how ignorant the rest of us were at building stuff for people with disabilities as well, because it is convoluted and there's social things like, let's not talk about disabilities. And, do I say blind? Do I say vision impaired? Do I say, people are, and then we just don't talk about it at all. So I kind of made it my mission in the tech world to let's go out there and start broadening people's views and sharing what it's really like to have a disability and explaining to connecting those dots between people and saying it's actually not that hard. You just have to take these very simple steps to just ensure that your website can be used by a screen reader or getting transcripts or captions, all these kind of little things, which are small tweaks. And if we could just do that, then it's fine. So I went to go speak at disability conferences and tech conferences. I spoke at Microsoft and VMware, these big companies as well. So that's what I kind of how I got into this whole field.
Yeah. Well, what was that transition point when you said, oh, I'm doing a lot of this. I'm really good at it. And I can help other people become really great speakers.
So in the middle of the pandemic, I'm like, you know what? I like speaking. I like speaking so much. I'm going to go get a course. I'm going to go take a course on speaking. And so obviously there weren't many stages open during the summer of 2020, but what a perfect time, because I think that maybe because nobody was looking, I got a lot of individualized attention from coaches and mentors and stuff like that, who are also they were refiguring out the business. And one of the courses I went through at a specific point in the course, actually it was a 7-week course. Week 5 was go create your video demo reel, right? That's what I specialize in now. I create video demo reels for professional speakers. And I saw all my friends get hung up. They're like, I don't want to watch the 40 keynotes that I've given. I don't have time to go and pick out the best times. And I remember even myself, I would go and reach out. I think I spent over $20,000 with editors because I would send everything to one and they would say, oh, go look at all your video. Go take out all the timestamps, then go listen to some music. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking for. So if I'm going to have to learn what I'm looking for, I may as well just build it myself. And that invention is the mother of all. Wait, what's the expression again? Necessity is the invention of all. You know what I'm talking about. Mother of all necessity. Mother of all invention is necessity. Something like that. And it's so I just started learning about, well, how do you craft a proper demo reel? And this is very, very similar to a video sales letter, a VSL. And because that's really what it is. It's a sales asset that gets you on the call with an event planner who wants to bring you in to speak at their event. And from that, I learned more about storytelling, because if you just tell something in the hero's journey, then that makes people very receptive to the way that something is structured. So then I had friends come and say, Cam, I hear you're doing video reels now. I'm like, I'm doing it for myself. And they said, well, can you make mine? And like, it snowballs in that. Like what a typical entrepreneur story, right? Like we see a problem, we go and figure out how to solve it, and then we solve it, and then people want us to help them solve it, and then we just kind of that circle continues. So that's kind of how it all started.
Wow. And let's talk about the importance of that reel, because you can have a ton of speaking engagements that you've already done. What makes the difference between somebody who has the subject matter expertise, they've been speaking a lot, perhaps on podcasts, teaching, going and speaking at conferences, and the person who has maybe less of that, but has a really great reel?
So the biggest question that event coordinators have, especially when you get to that like $10,000, $15,000 level, what they're asking in the back of their mind is, show me what you've got. And the answer to that question isn't send me your 45-minute keynote or send me your TEDx talk, because they're not going to watch that. What they're really looking for are things like audience interaction, stagecraft, storytelling, maybe other kind of proof. So if you have things like if you've been on a big stage and you see a large audience in front of you, somebody else has already vetted you for that, or maybe like a media appearance. If you've been on breakfast television, that's going to be a great piece of social proof for an event planner to say, all right, you've got the chops, like you got the skills, you got the stages. That proves that, we're not going to be your very first stage. So you're already not competing against all the other people at the bottom. You're kind of going to the top to get those $10,000 keynotes. So I'm really big on getting to a 5-figure keynote as soon as possible. Because under that, it's really hard, first off, to pay for my services. Like, I'm not going to hide that. To craft something, to watch all this content manually and go through it is a lot of work and effort and time. But, below about $5,000, what you need to prioritize is getting on stages. Like, just get out there and talk and have it recorded professionally if you can afford it. After that, it's like then you're starting to compete against other speakers who already have a demo reel. And you got to think about it from the event planner's point of view. They have to speak to between 3 to 5 people to like open up the budget to be able to buy a $10,000 or like to hire a $10,000 speaker to come speak at a keynote or something like that. When they go to their boss and say, I think I've got I've got a great speaker, they have to be able to say, here's their website, here's the demo reel, here's their you have to really shrink that decision-making time to something so small, because they may have 2, 3, 4 different speakers. And so it's like, here are the 2 speakers we haven't decided between. You can't have you against somebody with a demo reel, because who's the boss going to choose? They weren't on the call with you. They're going to be like, I like this one. He looks good. Like, let's bring this person in because this person's awesome, right? And if you have a demo reel that just shows your skills on stage, that's going to really shorten the time of decision making.
Let's take a step back and talk about being a business owner versus being an employee. How was that transition? I know you did that with accelerated accessibility and you're speaking before you started the frequent speaker.
Right. It's never as easy as you think it's going to be, right? I've been a wantrepreneur. I'm not sure if you've ever heard that expression before, like a wantrepreneur. Like, I've been reading entrepreneurial books since I was 18 years old, and I'm 38 now. So it's like for 20 years I've been reading these books, and I never took the jump. Like, I never took the leap, and I'm like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I've run projects before. I've worked for I've led teams before. It must be just another facet of that same thing. And it's totally not. Like, it's absolutely not. And I think that, like, going back to speaking for a moment, like even in the speaking world, like I was getting paid $5,000-$10,000 to go speak about digital accessibility. And I thought it was just going to be more of that. But the thing is, once I stopped working at IBM, which was a really big logo at the time that I could pop up on my website or something like that and say, hey, I work for IBM and I'm the digital accessibility lead for, great, we'd love to have you in. After that, it was like crickets. So going off on your own is never something you want to take lightly. I think for many people that you have to think about it a little bit more, but at some point you're just going to take the leap, right? I think that a lot of us, like, for example, I'm still learning today what it is to be an entrepreneur, and every day is a learning process. So it's not something you take lightly, but at some point you got to take the leap.
Yeah. I think that is what hangs most people up. They know that they don't want to stay in their corporate role. They want to do something else. But perhaps they have the passion, but they don't know the business side, or they have the business side, but they don't know what they're passionate about. And it is on the job learning every day.
Every single day, right? How many times have you woken up and be like, okay, where am I getting my next client from? And you think of, okay, well, maybe I can pick up some like recurring revenue. And that doesn't mean I shouldn't or can't go out and find new clients. It's like, well, then there's all these opportunities, right? There's the shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
I could go and do it this way or that way. I can go to conferences. I can go and speak on stage. I can go and get clients that way. I can go do cold outreach. There's a million ways to go and gather clients. but focusing on like one, maybe two is what you have to do. And that I think is probably the hardest thing that we as entrepreneurs have to remember and realize. It's like, wait, the focus is where we have to spend most of our time.
Yeah. And when it comes to getting clients, I mean, obviously it was during the pandemic. People are trying to figure out how much money they needed to save versus how much they could spend. But we also saw a lot of people getting further education, getting certifications, really jumping into those things that they wanted to do but couldn't pursue when they had to go to work every day. What was it like getting the first few clients in the door, particularly since you said you have a bespoke service, you're not cheap, you put a lot of care and time and intentionality into crafting the best possible product for people?
So the first couple of clients, I followed the model of I gave away 5 demo reels for free. So it was really easy to get my first clients and then getting them to refer new clients to me right after. And I think for anything that's creative, if you imagine if you're an artist, you're going to want to give out your first like paintings for free. Like, as you're learning the skill, you're going to have to go and give away a lot of stuff. And anyway, like it's of no use to you to just have it. And that's where I learned things like, how do you actually script this properly? And who do I hire to do my editing? Because again, if I'm doing the editing and the script writing and the interviews, and like if I'm doing me, that's really hard to scale that. So as I got busier, I started to hand off more of that work. And then all of a sudden I became an employer, more than just someone who leads a team. I'm an employer who has to, scope things out and do like make financial decisions based on, where I want the team to go and where I have to allocate funds. And that was like a really new skill. And hiring an A-team player, even though it cost me twice as much as what I was expecting, really sped up the business. Like I could do twice as many demo reels in half the time, which was a huge advantage to me to be able to just hand that big piece off. And so that was probably one of the biggest realizations. But that comes over time. So giving away your first products for free really teaches you things like customer service as well, right? Because you don't want those first 5 to be junk. And I think that's an easy way to treat it. I always wanted to make sure that the first 5, even though I had to pay out of pocket to get that edited professionally because I reached the limit of my skills, it was like, yeah, the first reels cost me something like $2,000 just to create. So it was already $10,000 in the hole before I made my first dollar. But where can you get a $10,000 learning education? And I got the testimonials out of there. I started to build my portfolio. So any of these creative endeavors, go give it out for free first. And then if you get too busy, you can always tell your free clients and say, hey, I'm selling this now. I can't do this for you for free anymore. And I just made it a point that every quarter I would just raise my prices by 20%. And like so far that's been building quite nicely for me.
Yeah. And one thing I want to know, of course, is about AI. The past couple of years, a lot of tasks have been taken over. People are trying to use it for editing. They're trying to use it for different things. How does that affect your business, if at all?
So it's funny. At the very beginning, that was how I found I was going to solve this problem. I said, I'm going to get AI to chop up because there's some great editors out there, some great services out there, rather, that will automatically scan a 45-minute video and find the best clips out of there. Okay. So we did that. And anytime you use ChatGPT, you kind of find that it gets you about 80% there, right? Right. Like it's about there. Like, like no script is really, you don't just take it and you pop. I mean, you can, but then it reads like AI. And you kind of like, this is not quite perfect. Not in my voice, maybe. And you find you have to tweak that last 20%, which takes you that much longer. So at the very beginning, we would do that. We would get AI to cut up all of our content that we'd receive from clients. And then what we would do is we'd kind of like play a big puzzle piece. We'd like pop it in there. But then what happened is, with a client who had lots of content. Okay, so this is someone who's a TV personality. She said, why did you miss this one clip that I had on this big presentation? And she says, why didn't you choose this one? And we had no answers because I was like, I'd have to go back to the drawing board or like that. And that all of a sudden started becoming like a point of embarrassment. Like if I can't give a speaker the reason why we didn't pick a very specific clip that was meaningful to her, just because AI didn't understand the intentionality, like, yeah, a good speaker will use pauses in their speeches, right? Like to create gravity and emphasis. AI doesn't like that. AI wants everything to be super compact. And, you go on TikTok anytime and moments of pause are all cut out completely. So that's what AI is leaning towards when they pick the most viral clips. Okay, so my speaker, she didn't like the content that we chose. And even though we chose the best of those 200 clips that were picked out, they weren't the best. They weren't truly the best. So we went back to doing this all manually. So instead now, so even if someone sends us 30, 40 keynotes, we're picking using other criteria, things like, is it a stage performance? Is it a media appearance? Does it have high quality audio? Does it have high quality video? Do we have multiple camera angles? Like we're picking the more of these like visually appealing. Oh, is there an audience interaction? Like that's a big one. Event planners love seeing when you jump down off the stage and like talk with an audience. Ooh, that's really good. Like people love seeing that. So now we're only picking the top 10% of like the best videos that a speaker has sent us, and we're watching all of those manually. And now we're doing that whole clip selection. Yeah, that takes like 3 days to watch 10 videos. You're like, 3 days, 10 videos. Like, yeah, it does, because you got to pause it. You got to write down the timestamp, and you got to really think about like, is this highlighting what we're looking for? Is it not? Is this filling a gap somewhere? Is this, it doesn't fall under any of those other criteria. So it's a very manual process in the end. And I'm sure that one day I'll be able to pipe into an AI and say, find these types of clips. But so far we went that way and we've gone completely back. Now, I just want to add one more thing there if I can. For the newer speakers, use AI, leverage it, because you're probably doing the DIY process anyways. You don't have the stagecraft and or you probably don't. Otherwise, you're probably not a new speaker. You only learn that through doing it. You can save a lot of time. If someone says like, show me your demo reel, you can go and quickly clip it up and put some stuff together. You'll at least have something, right? Which already puts you ahead of somebody else. Maybe it'll cost you a couple $100 to get that all done. And that's what I encourage the people I work with who are not at the level for a full done for you service. I say, go to AI, go do this, go use AI to even like script out your like everything. If you're DIYing it, you don't burden yourself. Like just get something out there. It'll be much better than nothing. And at least you're going to like move faster with that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Because that was what part of my next question was. For instance, I give talks at podcast conferences on various things on branding or on AI tools for post-production content creation. I give talks at workforce development, national conferences on AI marketing tools, but some of these are filmed, but a lot of them aren't. So you talked about creating your own speaker reel if you don't have those big keynotes that you've given.
Yep.
I've done a lot of virtual workshops, which of course I have the recordings, but are those going to be really up to stuff?
Well, if you have stage and media appearances are always going to be worth more. But one thing that we do in our reels is we actually will go and find and hire a videographer. We're very specific. We say you need 2 4K cameras, a lav mic, you need to bring all your lighting equipment, stuff like that. And yeah, that costs somewhere between $1,000 to $1,500 just for the photo shoot. And then we go and find a location, and usually it's in some kind of studio that you can find. And we go and shoot an interview to fill in all the gaps. And the biggest thing that we found is event planners want to know that you can go and solve a problem, most likely. And the problem may be, if you're an inspirational speaker, the problem is I've got a workforce that's not motivated, or I've got a workforce that's burned out, and you need a motivational speaker to come in there and pep people up. In your situation, if you're speaking on like for podcasters, right? Let's use that as an example. An event planner who's planning for the Podfest, that's the one. Yeah. So Podfest, they're going to want to know that you can get in there, and when you're going to get up on stage, you're going to solve a problem. And if you've got a workshop, they're going to move you over here. And if you've got a breakout, they're going to move you over here. But if you want a big keynote stage, you got to get up there and show that you can go and solve a problem. You're not usually talking about the problem that you solve on the stage, right? You're already there. So you're not going to talk about, you may have one quote. The big problem that we're all experiencing in the world of podcasting right now is that, I don't know, the audio quality through Zoom is not that great, something like that. And so here's how you solve that, right? So,
I feel called out.
Sorry, I didn't mean it. It just jumped to my head right away. I know it's a common problem. And it's like, if that's what you're out there to solve, then you can be really detailed about that problem in your speaker reel. And the only way to do that is to go and get yourself recorded, hire your own videographer and do that. Or spend those bucks and then go bring a videography team to the conference. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. Just ask the event planner if you can do that. And so this is going to elevate your brand above the next speaker. And I've interviewed now over 1,000 speakers who all say the same thing. I feel invisible next to the next person who talks about generally the same thing as me. How do I stand out? And it's like, you get something like this done, and this becomes the first thing you lead with. Hi, event planner. I'd love to come speak at your event. I think I can solve a problem that your audience has. Here's my video demo reel that I can show you how I can solve that problem, and I would love to talk to you about it. What is that? That's a cold email right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. And I do love the example you gave for the last conference on podcasting. I spoke about, I did that. How many AI tools are you using? Right. And what about if we could consolidate that into one tool that will solve all your problems? And here's how I use that as a podcaster. So I try to follow some of what you're saying. There's a big issue with this. We're all paying for a million things. How do we condense it to something that's going to be less expensive, but actually much better quality, and do this and do this and do this? So yay, I'm on the right track.
Right.
In terms of my speaking, but I don't have a reel, but it's something I think about. So, and I also work with people who want to get seen and speak. Now, do you primarily work with the people who do want to monetize this? Or do you also work with people who, for instance, president of a nonprofit foundation, who has a big background as a CMO at some major companies, but now he wants to raise money for his nonprofit, and he wants to do that through speaking, but he doesn't necessarily need to monetize the speaking. He's really trying to get in front of audiences that then could become sponsors and donors.
Right. So you're talking about the back end service versus the front end, right? So for anyone who doesn't know who's listening, a front end speaker is going to be like, give me $10,000 and I'll come speak at your event. A back end speaker is like, let me pitch from stage usually, or give me the opportunity to put up a QR code and collect email lists. And, you're getting other benefits from that as well. And by the way, even if you're getting paid on the front end, putting up a QR code with your meeting notes, I love this trick. Okay. So if you rehearsed your keynote, which you should always do, record it, pop it into an AI tool to convert speech to text, and then ask ChatGPT to generate a lead magnet or something like that from just generate the notes from your talk. So you can go up at the beginning of the talk and say, hey, everyone, I just want to let you know that at the end of this talk, I've got a QR code at the end where you'll get all my notes from this talk plus a little bit of bonus. So you don't have to spend time writing it. So you know what you're queuing people up to do is not write it, and then they're going to be forced to get your QR code at the end, right? So you're pre-framing things so that people at the end are like, I got to put in my email, but I really want these notes. And you got the slides up, you make it pretty, but that's a good technique that I've learned on if you want to generate, if you want to build an email list through your talks, then go ahead and do that. So now to answer your question, yeah, if there's somebody who is looking to get paid on the back end, having a demo reel still makes a lot of sense because you're going to be able to speak at bigger charity events. You're going to be able to speak at larger organizations, no matter what, just because you're, again, very clear what your intent is. So let's talk about CMO who wants to raise money for a charity, right? Where would someone like that go and raise money? Give me an example.
Primarily with their business connections. So, and this is actually a real situation with somebody I was speaking with earlier this week. They're at Adweek in New York and seen old colleagues and people they know from being a bigwig CMO at different major companies, and is now saying, oh, now I'm doing this. I'm president of this foundation. It raises money for the school and blah, blah, blah. And trying to get on stages for some of those companies' events where they're doing cause-driven marketing or talking about cause-driven marketing and giving the pitch of, hey, we're an organization that you could partner with.
So if I had someone like that, I was speaking to someone like that on the phone, the first thing I would say is you got to drill down and pick a niche. Okay. So before we talk about anything else, because I think it's very easy for someone, let's pick a different case. I don't want to poke too much if it's for that person's listening, and I don't know the situation, but a lot of speakers out there speak on health and wellness, burnout, which is a very general topic. And so they're saying when I ask them, well, who needs to hear your message? Everybody needs to hear my message. It's whoa, let's slow down for a second. Okay. And then you kind of got to drill down and say, where have you worked before? Who are you most familiar with? Where do you feel comfortable? Where have you spoken before? Where do you want to speak? Right. And you start to pull in all these different avenues. So maybe for someone who's been a CMO, it might be really ideal for them to go and speak at, if they've worked in tech before, then why don't we just start there? It doesn't mean you have to end there, because naturally through the grapevine, you're going to be heard at healthcare companies and universities and charitable organizations, and just through you just going and speaking at more events and doing outreach and all the other kind of good stuff for business, you're going to start to attract other people. So think of your niche as the tip of the spear. So the more clear you can get about that, you don't even have to say it. I would never encourage anybody on the demo reel to say, I help healthcare companies like this, because then you're almost targeting too much. But actually having that in your mind and saying, at some point you're going to have to talk about the transformation that you've done or what the benefits are. And you're going to say, well, this person here and that person there. And if they're from the tech company, it's just so much easier to focus in if you've got that niche just written out. 1 page, 2 pages, just to be okay, this is what I'm referencing. Now I'm really clear on who I want to go out to, because, and another benefit is afterwards, you're not going to have to change your talk very much, because if your talk is very focused in on tech or healthcare or whatever your niche is, then every tech company that you go into, you can really easily speak to the benefits to that tech company because you know the industry better, and it just kind of trickles down to all parts of your business, right? Because speaking is a business, even though it feels like a side gig, it's a business.
Yes. I love that you said that, because when I was reading that in my notes for you, I was just thinking podcasting is a business as well. And you have to take everything you do, even if you think it's a hobby or a side gig, as a business and treat it with that care, which I honestly did not. I didn't realize until a year ago that my podcast wasn't just a 3-year-old hobby. It was actually a business. And then this year I've been able to monetize.
Right.
And
Cool.
I changed
Congrats,
my
by the way. Very
perspective.
cool.
Thank you.
Nice, nice.
There's still a lot of work to do, but it's one of those things where you have to, if you treat it intentionally and as a business from the beginning, you're going to have quicker results. You're going to
Absolutely. Right. I always compare that. Like when I talk to a speaker who says, "Oh, I can't invest that kind of money," I said, "Well, if you were to say buy a franchise, right? I want to go buy a Burger King or something like that. Like, okay, so the thing is, when you buy a franchise, the reason it costs $1.5 million to buy a fast food joint is because they've already done the marketing and like they're going to help you build it and they're going to help you train your staff, like all that extra stuff that you're now paying sweat equity to go and build. Like they've already done all that. That's why it costs that much money. So when you compare it, like you are building something, because at some point as a podcaster, as a speaker, you're going to go have to find a VA, which means you're going to become an employer. You're going to have to go out and do sales, which means it's either you learn your own sales or do a sale. You're going to have to go and post on social media. So you got to go and figure out marketing. You're going to have to go and like build sales, which is design. And at some point you either do it yourself or farm it out to do. And so if you add up all those costs, if you're to pay someone else to do it, it's like, it's equivalent to going to buy a franchise. Like it's the same thing. So treating it like that and we have to stop telling ourselves as business owners, like, oh, I'm going to go the best use of my time today is crafting, like, listening to all my talks. And it's just so not worth your time. Like you go and find the experts to do it and come back and work on it yourself. I know, because we're all guilty. I found myself listening to one of my clients' talks. I'm like, my team said, oh, we're on crunch time. And I'm like, what I'm going to do? I'm going to help out. And I spent 2 days. That means there's 2 days of me not growing my business, 2 days of me not doing outreach, 2 days of me not building my course that I'm building, which would ultimately grow the business. Instead, I was listening to my clients' keynotes because I wanted to help out my team. But I should have just called my client and said, hey, can we push it for 2 days? I didn't. Like, why don't we do these things?
Well, okay. So I want to get to your course, but before that, there are 2 segments of my audience that I really see. One is the person who is in a corporate role, had a lot of success and is able to talk about their topic, and they know their topic in and out. And then there are, which I probably fall into the second category as well, the entrepreneur, the serial entrepreneur. It's this hustle mentality in many ways where we're doing a whole bunch of different things just to try to cobble it together so that we can do the other things that we love, like teaching or podcasting or whatever else, right? And I see this also in the emails I get from entrepreneurs where they're saying, oh, I've just added this other service that has nothing to do with this thing, but now I can talk about this and I can help you in this way. Or I've transitioned my podcast 5 times and here's where I'm landing now, because they're really market testing. How would somebody like that, who might be an expert in 2 or 3 or 4 areas, hone in on what's going to be most valuable to an audience right now? Or do you have to create separate speaker reels, just like you might have different resumes? What does that look like?
So first off, we've all been there, right? Like, all right, like I still catch myself sometimes. Like I'm no expert, I'm not on, no Alex Tramosi or stuff like that, right? Like, but these are the things that I keep being reminded every single day that I need to be like, no, stop. Like instead of adding a new product, another SKU, right? You got to bring it down and reduce it. So you never want to have 2 or 3 demo reels. It's something I get asked all the time, because if your speaker page itself, if it says you talk about health and wellness, like maybe I can give you an example of a client that I've worked with. So he works in New York as it's like a paramilitary joint. I can't remember the name of it, but joint task force of like it's paramilitary. Anyway, so what he does is he helps on one side, he speaks on crisis management, specifically around tech. Like if your fire sprinkler systems all of a sudden stop working and there's a fire, like what do you do? Like how do you prepare for like super disaster preparedness? If there's something like 9/11 that happens, like where, like, are you ready? Are you really, like really serious stuff, like very rich. And he also speaks on LGBTQ issues as well. And it's like, whoa, like how do we merge those 2 together? And after talking, we kind of said, okay, well, what we're really talking about here is change management, right? Because you go into an organization and you say, you got to care more about people who have different thoughts or expressions or like different people. And on the other side, you want to also influence a leadership team to integrate a brand new like standard operating procedure or like data breach, right? No matter what, that there's going to be change involved in that, like people changing. He's like, I talk about change all the time, change leadership. And I'm like, that's your thing, right? Like, isn't that the thing? So we made the entire reel about the overlapping umbrella topic that he spoke about. And that should be matched also in the website, because when somebody visits your website, there should be no question about what you talk about. When you got them on the phone, talk about whatever you want. Like, hey, they may say that we need someone to talk about change leadership. I'm like, well, I could talk about LGBTQ. Is that a problem? Or do you have a problem with disaster preparedness? Like, why did you call me? And that's all about part of like a discovery call and a little bit more about that process. But you don't need to, just like you don't need two websites. You don't need two demo reels. You don't need a whole bunch of separate stuff, because then you're just fragmenting your message. So get super clear on what you want to speak on. And that's a whole other part.
Thank you. That I think will help people who are listening have a lot more clarity into finding that joint point in their Venn diagram of topics.
Totally. Yeah.
So you just teased us with a course that you're creating about this. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I'm building a whole community called The Frequent Speaker. It's on School, and I can send you the link to drop in the notes or something like that. And this is really targeted towards people who are making less than $10,000 per speaking gig, or are having problems with like the frequency, just like getting up, 1 month they'll have 2 talks, then the next quarter. So it's really around like sales and marketing just for speakers. Because I think the biggest pain point is many speakers, again, thinking of the gig mentality, they get on a discovery call with their dream client, and they either discount themselves, they don't know how to position their value, they don't know how to like ask questions like just the basic stuff, like, why did you get me on the call today? Like, what's the pain point that you and your teams are experiencing? Who should you be doing outreach to? Some of the basic tech stuff. So all that kind of like foundational stuff that you need to kind of build a speaking business that we kind of just take for granted as people who have been in the speaking world for a long time. Or I know definitely with the coaching that I went through, people just said, oh, start a LinkedIn Live. And you're like, wait, I don't know how to do that. You got to go figure that out. So I've kind of outlined all of that in this community. Nice. And I mean, there's group coaching as well and stuff like that too. So this is really the foundational aspect of side gig, entrepreneurship, speaking business kind of stuff. Yeah,
fantastic. And then people can learn everything, and then they can still work with you at a higher level, or they can try to DIY it.
Yep.
And then hopefully get your feedback. Yeah, that's
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I've put all the instructions on how to DIY your own demo reel in there as well. So free video course, just go through it. Talks about finding your niche and how to like hone in on that. Because a lot of people want to get into speaking, because I think it's one of the lowest barrier to entry side gigs that you can go do. In fact, it's sometimes even easier than Uber, right? Because you don't have to actually spend a lot of time out on the road. You just kind of got to write a Word document and say, I think I've got a message here that people would like, because the teams at work, whenever I give a talk on whatever, right? They want to hear what I have to say, right? Personal branding. Oh, they want to hear what I have to say. Then maybe I can make this into a thing, because maybe other companies want to hear about it as well. Or maybe my church wants to hear about more what I have to say. Or, my local Kiwanis Club, like all these little groups, and all of a sudden you say, all right, I've got like 4 or 5 people who've said they have interest, and maybe I can make this a thing. And when you start to say, maybe I can make this a thing, that's when everything changes, because then it's like no longer just a hobby. It's starting to become more of that business kind of idea.
Oh, fantastic. What is the one thing that people should do to get started on their speaking journey?
You got to learn outreach. You got to learn how to just go and present yourself to people that you don't know and aren't familiar with. I was on a call with someone recently, and she came to me almost in tears, because she's like, I've been through all these coaching programs. I've been through all 3 of these programs, and they all want me to go out and like talk to people. And all I want is somebody to go in and like sell for me. And I had to like reset some expectations in that call and say, like, how is anybody going to be able to sell for you if you can't position yourself properly yourself, right? Because even if you go talk to a speaker bureau, and by the way, speaker bureaus are really big, right? There's huge speaker bureaus out there. They're taking somewhere between 30 to 50% of your paycheck, right, to get up on stage, depending on who you're going with, how big they are. But what a speaker bureau wants is somebody like who's a big entertainer. They want someone who has a big presence. And sometimes you need to be referred from a speaker who's already in a bureau, like it's like a closed club, right? You got to be invited in. And the speaker bureau wants to know that you are somebody who is in demand. Like, if you don't have the stage presence, if you can't say I've been on 100 stages before and here's my testimonials and here's my demo reel, a lot of speaker bureaus don't even want to see you until you have a demo reel now, because again, that shows that you're serious about this. And it's brand, like, you got to go out there and do some outreach. You got to go out there and learn how to introduce yourself to event coordinators and directors and VPs and organizations, and I don't know, more than like a big SHRM conference, right? SHRM is around all the time as like the big HR conference for anyone who doesn't know, right? You don't go speak at SHRM, you got to start at the local level, and then you go to the state level, then you go to the national level, right? And like it's got to grow like that. That's the only way it grows. I think that we have an expectation that I've got a good idea and everybody likes to listen to me. Therefore, the entire world wants to listen to me, and you're just not there yet. I know, like I fell into that trap as well. So we have to understand that if you just want to get started in speaking, before you even write your talk, you can just go out and ask people, I'm good on personal branding. What pain points do you and your team have with personal branding? Oh, we don't know about this. We don't know about that. And, cool. Okay. If I came back to you in like a month and I offered you something, would you be interested in letting me go and speak for free to your team? I know people listening right now are like, no, I need to get paid for that. It's like, slow down. You've never even like given this talk out. Like you don't know any feedback from it. Go and sell before you build it. It's a really big thing in the world of entrepreneurship. Just go and write the outline first and go back to the person and say, hey, I've got this outline. Is this something of interest to you? And they may say yes or no. Like, can I go test it out with your audience? And you build the same talk that you're going to go to 5 different audiences. And then you've got some meat. Then you've got something out there, and you can build a course out of that. You can write a book out of that. You can go and but that's the avenue. Just go learn to talk to people. Go learn to get interest. Go learn to find out if people actually want to hear what you have to say. So that's, I think, where people should start.
Yeah. And overnight success takes 5 years?
Right? Years, right? I'll never forget the story of Tiger Woods, right? Like, he became an overnight success at 18 years old. It's like, what? He was golfing since the guy was like 4 or something like that. So it's like, there is no overnight success. It just it's all time.
Oh, Cam, this has been a really great conversation. I've appreciated all that you've shared with the audience and with me, because I always like to ask questions that I know I'm interested in, which I know then my audience is also interested in. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, family motto, words that keep inspiring you in your personal life and your professional life?
Every day, this too shall pass. Doesn't matter if you're at your highs or your lows. It reminds you of when you're at your highs, this won't be and if you're at your lows, it will come to pass at some point. That's like next on the list. I don't have many tattoos, but if it's got to be tattooed, right? At some point, your speaking career will take off as long as you just stick with it, right?
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you to everybody who's watching or listening to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their tips, tricks, and advice to help you move into your life and your work a little bit easier.
Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.